All right, so this is Let's Get It Started. This is all about the new government in the United States. Now, when this new government starts off, it's got some big time problems. The first is the government's in debt. Second, they have a small army and no navy. And the third, they're not respected by other countries. So the first problem is they have some big time debt, they have a small army and no navy, and then they're not respected by other countries. So in 1789, the country elects Washington as the first president and John Adams as the vice president. So Washington's the president, Adams the vice president. If you want to know more about George Washington, there you go. There you go again. So another issue the country's having is that the Brits actually continued to have forts in the Great Lakes area. And they're actually giving guns to natives so the colonists wouldn't come out there. So the Brits were giving guns to natives so the colonists wouldn't come out to the Great Lakes. Now, as Washington starts office, he starts setting precedents almost immediately. The first precedent is the judiciary precedent. The Constitution really only creates a Supreme Court. The rest of the judiciary was created by the Judiciary Act of 1789. So Washington is really the one who creates the rest of the federal judiciary. Washington also was the first to form a cabinet, and it's formed out of the heads of federal government departments by Washington, obviously a big part of the presidency today. So Washington is the first to form a cabinet, and that was formed out of the federal government department heads. And if you want to know more about the Judiciary Act, oops, we went back. Now, if you want to know more about the Judiciary Act, there you go. Now, the first Secretary of the Treasury was Alexander Hamilton, and he became a target for the Anti-Federalists. So Alex Hamilton, first Secretary of the Treasury, and he was a target for the Anti-Federalists. Hamilton wanted to fix the country's problems by helping to industrialize the nation, issuing bonds to pay the debts, and chartering the Bank of the United States. So Hamilton wanted to fix the government's problems by industrializing, issuing bonds to pay debts, and chartering the Bank of the United States. Now, to implement Hamilton's plan, it required a loose interpretation of the Constitution, which there were many who didn't want that. So to implement Hamilton's plan, it required a loose interpretation of the Constitution. And if you want to know more about Alex Hamilton, pretty neat guy, there you go. And really, the way they get Hamilton's plan passed is Washington and Hamilton agreed to move the capital to Washington, D.C. It had been in Philadelphia. So they actually agreed to move the capital to Washington, D.C. in order to get Hamilton's plan passed. And here's some more about Washington, D.C. Now, part of the plan to pay the debt was to actually tax whiskey. So part of the plan to pay the debt was to tax whiskey. Farmers in Pennsylvania who were making whiskey didn't really like that, and so they rebelled. And Washington and Hamilton quickly put down this rebellion. So part of the plan to pay the debt was to tax whiskey. Farmers in Pennsylvania didn't really like that, and so they rebel, and it's called the Whiskey Rebellion. And if you want to know more about the Whiskey Rebellion, there you go. Now, in 1793, the Brits and the French go to war again. Remember, they hate each other many, many times. So in 1793, they go to war again. The U.S. declares neutrality, and the colonists actually became angry as the British start seizing ships in the West Indies. So in 1793, the Brits and the French actually go to war again. The U.S. declares their neutrality, but the people of America become angry because the British are seizing ships in the West Indies. So in 1794, the U.S. signs the Jay Treaty to avoid war with the British. 1794 Jay Treaty to avoid war with the British. It actually eliminates the British forts in the West, but it keeps U.S. shipping restrictions. So in 1798, the U.S. signs the Pinckney Treaty, which opens up trade with Spain. So they signed the Jay Treaty in 1794 to eliminate forts in the West and to keep them out of a war with the British. 1795, the Pinckney Treaty, which opens up trade with Spain. If you want to know more about the Jay Treaty, there you go. You can actually read the Jay Treaty. Whoa!